All right, good morning to those who are currently in the path of the system, Tropical Storm Wipha. I am going to share this stream real quick, and then we'll get the show on the road. If you are watching the stream after it comes out and you have any questions, you can again ask them in the chat, and I will gladly answer them in the next update. So, let's get into it. Here is a look at Tropical Storm Wipha's overall threat level over the next 5 days across southeastern Asia. We can see that there is a lot of areas that could receive at least marginal impacts over the next 5 days, mainly over the next 2 to 3 days, though. If we take a look at the marginal impacts or marginal threat level area, it covers parts of Guangdong province, parts of Guangxi province, and then in towards much of Myanmar, and then moving westwards towards Bangladesh and India. Not really showing this area just yet because it's a little bit uncertain. But if we go down here, we can see, though, it is also a large portion of Thailand and then off towards Vietnam, Laos. A lot of areas could receive at least marginal impacts in those areas, and also parts of Cambodia. If we take a look at the area, oh, and again, these are mostly in the form of marginal impacts. If we then take a look at the slight impacts that could occur from the system, we have parts of Hainan Island, parts of far southwestern Guangdong province, southern Guangxi province, in towards northern Vietnam, parts of Thailand, and then, or parts of Laos, excuse me, then to parts of Myanmar, and a lot of parts of Myanmar, and then parts of western Thailand, and then parts of northeastern Cambodia. Then we see another pocket over here in western Myanmar. Again, this is more of a rain threat. However, in these areas, it's more of a wind threat. Just because the system may become a typhoon and it is going to have a larger wind field of tropical storm force or maybe even damaging winds. If we take a look at the moderate impacts, we see that there's a corridor in parts of northern Vietnam and northern Laos, where we could see moderate impacts in the form of either wind or rain. There are also two other sections which covers portions of southern Myanmar and southwestern Myanmar. Those are going to be in the form of rain, as there could be upwards of 400 to 500 millimeters of rain. Again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat. I will read the chat towards the end of the stream to answer all of your questions. Now, if we take a quick break to look at the global tropics right now. Yes, this is up to date. Okay. Here's a look at Tropical Storm Wipha. Over here, this was as of around 3 hours ago, so it has weakened slightly more, but around 60-mile-an-hour winds. It is expected to move west and then could reform here in the Bay of Bengal, but it has not been marked because the system itself, it may be just Wipha itself once again. It may not be a completely new disturbance. But if we take a look at the Atlantic, we have Invest now newly designated Invest 94L, only around a 10% chance of forming over the next 2 days. There's another area of interest, the remnants of 93L could try and redevelop in the Gulf. That's around a 10% chance over the next 7 days. There's an Eastern Pacific disturbance which is dying out now, only around a 10% chance over the next 2 days, with another disturbance with a 10% chance over the next 7 days. If we take a look at the Western Pacific, we have two disturbances that both have a 20% chance over the next 48 hours and a 50% chance over the next 7 days. That is Invest 97L, or 97W, and another disturbance that will likely become 98W. One could impact Taiwan, the other could impact the Northern Mariana Islands, and then eventually Japan. So, but anyways, Tropical Storm Wipha is currently why we're in code pink, and why we are having so many updates on this system. All right. Taking a look at the satellite imagery on Tropical Storm Wipha, we can see that the system is beginning to move back over the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin, but it is quite more northerly than what we first thought. So that will limit some of its more possible significant intensification. but the system is still likely to intensify slightly in the Gulf of Tonkin over the next 24 hours. Speaking of which, here's a look at our forecast cone. We have it as a typhoon potentially over the next 24 hours, just a minimal one if it does become one. Weakening to a tropical storm within the next 36 hours, depression over the next 48 hours, and remnant low during the next 60 hours. And it should continue tracking gradually westwards over the next 3 to 5 days as a remnant low. We could see some redevelopment, but that is too uncertain as of right now. Alright, now if we take a look at infrared, there's not a lot of convection over the center, but there is this decent band that's now forming to the southeastern side of the storm, not really helping out the main core of the storm. We can take a look at radar as well, seeing that huge band that's off to the south of the system, but we're not seeing a whole lot of development over the center. Here's a look at where the center is roughly located at, just in southern Guangxi province. Anyways, if we take a look at the European ensembles for wind shear, the shear should remain quite high in the Gulf of Tonkin, but it might lower some when it moves over Vietnam. So maybe it holds on to its strength for a little bit longer than we initially thought. And then if we go over to look at the current shear, we can see that there is a decent amount of shear coming from the north here, which is making the system quite lopsided. Much of the heavy rainfall is to the south, which, I mean, that's mostly good news for parts of China because it's not really extending that far north. But this will become a problem for parts of Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand over the next few days. Now, if we take a look at the distance from how far away the system is from certain areas, it is roughly around 150 to 100 kilometers away from Vietnam, roughly around 500 kilometers away from Laos, roughly 900 kilometers away from Thailand, same for Myanmar, roughly around 1700 kilometers away from Bangladesh, and around 2000 kilometers away from India. Then if we take a look at our next disturbance, Invest 97W, we'll just go over a quick summary of this. Roughly around 1250 kilometers away from the Philippines, roughly 1350 from Manila, roughly 1580 kilometers away from Taiwan, 1500, 1300 from the Ryukyu Islands, and roughly around 2000 kilometers away from Japan. And we now have Invest 98W, as I was saying before. We should have gotten this any moment now. And we now have it over here. Winds are quite low, pressure's at 1008 millibars. It is currently roughly around 1100 kilometers away from Guam, and again, quite far, over 3500 kilometers away from Japan, so we have plenty of time to watch that system. Now, if we take a look at the model runs on these systems, the European run does show the system re-strengthening quite a bit in the Gulf of Tonkin and dragging it a little bit more south, crosses Vietnam, Laos, and then moves into the Bay of Bengal, potentially as a tropical depression. Then we can see, though, this system 97W being a very broad system may not be a tropical cyclone on that run, just way too broad. But this will cause quite heavy rainfall for the Philippines, mainly the western Philippines, including Metro Manila, as the monsoon is going to be moving from the southwest. The system, or the European run, does form the system Invest 98W over the Northern Mariana Islands, just something to watch out for. Here's a look at the latest American run, showing once again the system mainly maintaining intensity in the Gulf of Tonkin before then moving into the Bay of Bengal. Shows Invest 97W potentially developing over the next 3 days by the Ryukyu Islands and then potentially onto China. And then it shows that other system becoming a typhoon or maybe even major typhoon by the Northern Mariana Islands, then hopefully avoids Japan. Or it's not Laos, it's Lao. Is that correct? I don't know. I thought it was Laos. If we take a look at the German run here, it does have the system intensifying to a typhoon, maybe even a moderate Category 1 typhoon, before then moving inland and then combining with that disturbance in the Bay of Bengal. 97W, it has that system becoming a tropical storm past the Ryukyu Islands. Not showing a whole lot of support for 98W though. If we take a look at the Canadian run, it has the system not really intensifying at all in the Gulf of Tonkin and then dissipating over Thailand. The system 97W is quite broad, but it has 98W potentially becoming a typhoon and nearing Japan over the next 10 days. Can pronounce Leo. Am I saying that right? Leo. And if we take a look at the European ensembles here, again, they have them mostly moving out of the Gulf of Tonkin and then moving into the Bay of Bengal. There is quite heavy support that a low pressure area will develop somewhere in the northern Philippine Sea by Taiwan. But as you can see here, this is going to increase that southwesterly monsoon here for the Philippines as the winds are dragged towards the system. So heavy rainfall is possible in Metro Manila over the coming days. And also we see that support on the disturbance by the Northern Mariana Islands. Looking at this map, we can see the general consensus on where 97W will go. Generally towards China, at least on the European run, European ensembles. If we take a look at the American run, showing pretty much the same thing, but a lot more support on that system by the Northern Mariana Islands. Not really showing that here, but you can see the general consensus on 97W. Here is Wipha. And then all the way over here is just the 98W. Thank you, Ryans, but I do want to make sure I do it correct. Is it Leo or Leos or... I don't know if you could use a hyphen to say how it's pronounced. Here, I'm gonna search it up real quick. I want to see what it is officially. Hmm. Los is... Hmm. Los is the common English pronunciation, but it's Leo. Okay, thank you. Alright. Yes, thank you for letting me know that. I've been butchering that for quite some time. But if we take a look at the rainfall estimates over the next 5 days, this is the European run, and this will be in millimeters, showing roughly around 250 additional for parts of Hainan Island. If we go in towards Vietnam, rainfall amounts of 100 to 400 millimeters, maybe pockets of upwards of 500 millimeters. Same thing for parts of Laos, upwards of 400 millimeters. But then if we take a look at parts of southern Myanmar, rainfall totals could exceed 500 millimeters, maybe even upwards of 600 millimeters over the next 5 days. The system will have a huge pocket of moisture, so that's why those rainfall totals will be quite high. And if we look towards parts of India, only around 100 millimeters, Bangladesh, 150 to 200, and then the rest of Myanmar, only around 50 to 100. But again, though, parts of the Philippines could see rainfall totals as high as 400 millimeters over the next 5 days, with Metro Manila maybe around 150 millimeters, just because of that disturbance that it will try to develop near Taiwan. And then if we see around the Guam area, showing roughly 100 millimeters with rainfall totals offshore, around upwards of 500 millimeters. Now that's just the European run. If we go over to the American run, we see it shows that parts of Hainan Island again could see an additional upwards of 350 millimeters of rain. Shows overall less rainfall though across parts of southeastern Asia, and parts of Myanmar are only lower totals with around 400 millimeters, but this is a lower resolution run. That's most likely why. And then if we see in the Northern Mariana Islands and parts of Guam, 200 to the 300 millimeters of rain over the next 5 days, possible if the system gets its act together as quickly as it's forecasted. Then if we take a look at the German run, This is the one that's been the most bullish, showing rainfall totals as high as 540 millimeters in parts of Vietnam, with totals 600 to 700 millimeters offshore. Again, it's not impossible that this could happen. It's just less likely. Then, of course, rainfall totals going farther inland, generally higher than the American, but lower than the European run. Then, if we see the parts of the Philippines having most of those heavier rainfall rates offshore, Metro Manila gets away with around 200 millimeters. If we take a look at the latest Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast, it has the system at around 45 knots right now, but they are forecasting the system to intensify to 50, then 55 knots over the next 24 hours. We could see even further strengthening. That's why we are forecasting a possible typhoon peak once again. But again, 55 to 65 knots is a good general forecast for the system over the next 24 hours. Before then, it gradually weakens and then potentially dissipates. But its mid-level circulation will continue moving across parts of southeastern Asia and then in towards India and Bangladesh. Alright, so if you have any questions, you can let me know in the chat and I will happily answer them. And if we take a look at the more higher resolution radar imagery here, you can see where the center is, where the winds are blowing offshore. Not a whole lot of a surge threat, but we do have a decent thunderstorm ongoing in southwestern Hainan Island, and we can see it right around here, I believe. Or not Hainan Island, excuse me. Parts of Guangxi province, I believe that is. And you can see that right over here, this big burst of thunderstorms right over southwestern Guangxi province, which could have the potential for flash flooding if it stalls over the same regions. And remember, this soil is already saturated from the past few days of rainfall, so wouldn't be surprising if there is some isolated to local flooding. If we take a look at the overall broad scope of things, we can see northern Vietnam is getting those bands, mostly moving offshore though, it's not any onshore flow, but these bands are going to continue impacting these areas even as the system moves away. So again, heavy rainfall rates in totals upwards of 500 millimeters in total. But now let's answer some questions. First, I would like to answer the questions from the last stream. So I'm going to pull that up on my phone. I saw that there were some questions, at least one, that I would like to answer. At least I thought I saw something. Okay, it is this video right here. Excuse me, sorry about that. I just want to make sure all the questions are answered. No, it's not there. Okay. I guess they might have commented it on another video. I swear that I saw an update or like a question on the system. Nope, I don't see it. Okay, my apologies. So let's start answering the questions here. Skira says severe tropical storm landfall, I think. Yeah, that's what the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is forecasting, roughly around 55 knots. I think it could be as high as 65 knots. It all depends on how far south the system actually tracks. The more north it goes, the quicker it will make landfall, and then of course, less amount of time it has to strengthen. And then that will also have implications going further inland on just how much developed it would be by the time it moves in towards parts of like Myanmar, for example. If the system is still a tropical depression by that time, then you can expect more consolidated, heavier rainfall rates. If not, then the rainfall will be later and more spread out. Let's see. Ryan's asked, was O7W subtropical or not? In my personal estimates, I have O7W as just a low pressure area. For those who don't know, O7W was this system. It was classified as a tropical depression by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. I just didn't think that it really sustained convection and didn't have that great of a center. It did at one point before it was actually classified right over here. right over here, this was the best frame of it. Looked like it had an organized low-level circulation and then nice thunderstorms, but overall not really a tropical cyclone in my opinion. Ryan says also 94L and soon to be 97E, probably not going to develop. Nope, and I doubt that that system is going to be 97E, just because the chances are so low. It was just a weird reason why the Hurricane Center gave this 94L, maybe just to focus on models, and I think they were planning a recon flight into it as well, that's why. Uh, Mackenzie asks, Invest 98W becoming a major typhoon. That is a possibility. I'm going to pull up something that will show ensembles and their probabilities of becoming a typhoon, for example. I'm going to load it up off stream. I want to give a shout out to the M Weather, EMWX on X or Twitter for lending me this to help show you all these kind of graphics. I'm loading it up right now. This should work. Here's a look at the probabilities of a tropical depression over the next few days. We can see that the system, the European run, is showing quite a high amount of probabilities of the system becoming a tropical cyclone, almost around 90 to 100%. I don't think it's as likely though, because the system, while it may be a solid low pressure area, it may not be consolidated enough to be a tropical cyclone. But it is showing probabilities of around 60% near the Northern Mariana Islands. That's more likely, in my opinion. That's around over the next 7 days or so, and then moving generally towards Japan. And also showing around a 30 to 40% chance of Wipha redeveloping in the Bay of Bengal. But if we take a look at the probabilities of a tropical storm, here we can see that it's showing only around, or it's showing higher probabilities as it goes farther north. These are around 50 to 60% chance of the next week or so. And then if we go to Typhoon, force winds showing generally around, that would be roughly around 20 to 30% chance of a typhoon, which that's still quite high given the fact that that's around 8 days out and it's that confident. So yeah, just something to watch out for, especially the Northern Mariana Islands, around a 5% chance it's giving it. But that again is just it's just the, it's just the European ensembles, not the American ensembles. Now, if we take a look at the overall here, like all the tracks showing where the system could go. Oh, well, some of the ensembles do have the system becoming a typhoon, though, 97W. But here's a look at all those low pressure areas for what is now a 98W. But if we take a look at the GEFS, the American run, or the American ensembles, a lot stronger of a storm, some of them having it as a major typhoon. But most of the ensembles have the system moving off towards the east away from Japan. I'm curious what else this can show. Okay, it can show this. Cyclone locations, that's kind of helpful. Oh wow, that's quite helpful here. So here's a look at the ensembles of the next week or so for 98W. Again, most of them showing it here becoming a typhoon potentially. Just again, something to look out for. And I don't know if there's anything about probabilities of anything. No, not really. Oops. Okay, but yeah, again, most of them are staying. It's somewhat certain, at least for the American ensembles, that the system could become a typhoon and then eventually move away from land. But as we can see here, though, the other system will be quite broad, 97W. Not a whole lot of development there, just very broad circulation. All right, then let's answer the next question. Uh, And Mackenzie asks, is 97W becoming a tropical storm? Again, it is possible. It's just that the circulation will be so broad, giving it about a 50% chance of becoming at least a tropical cyclone. Which, if it were to become one, it'd be so broad that it's probably going to be having gale force winds, so tropical storm most likely. Sebastian asks, how's 94L doing? I see its southwest side is struggling. Well, if we take a look at 94L, the system is likely going to go through dry air, I believe. If I pull up satellite imagery on it, and we take a look at the water vapor, it is going to have to go through a somewhat hostile environment over the next few days. But overall, though, the system is in a decent moisture plume, but it just really doesn't have a lot of time to develop before it just goes into the void of dry air and high wind shear. Speaking of which, if we look at the wind shear forecast in the North Atlantic, we can see that there's kind of like this wall that develops right near the Lesser Antilles that's pretty much just going to kill it off, most likely. And that's why this system could develop. I've been keeping my eyes out on a disturbance potentially developing near the Gulf of Northern Gulf. Just something to look out for. And there's also this little thing which is most likely going to be frontal, but just something to keep an eye on as well over the next 5 days or so. I don't think it's really going to develop, but I mean, if the Ocean Prediction Center starts noting that's going to occlude and then maybe start losing its fronts, then I may mark that. And the Hurricane Center may mark that as well. Okay, orange rainfall warning. Interesting. Mackenzie asks, if Wipha makes it to the North Indian Ocean, don't think it will re-intensify. If we take a look at the latest European AI model on the system, they do potentially have they do show a broad circulation near the eastern part of India. We just don't know how tight that circulation will actually be and how consolidated it will be. So overall, the remnants of Wipha will help to merge with this disturbance, and we could see some development over the next 5 days or so, maybe even the next week as it moves over and across India. Yep. All right, well, I mean, that's all the questions so far. So if you have any other questions, just be sure to let me know what they are. And as we can see here, we have this low pressure area trying to already form in the Bay of Bengal. They'll meet eventually. Just have some winds circling around, just a general trough of low pressure here. But again, these two disturbances will likely combine depending on where Wipha eventually goes. If it goes too far north, it might just dissipate. But if it goes more west, it could move into the Bay of Bengal. I do think that there's more of a likely chance that this disturbance ultimately wins out against the two. It's just something to think about. Yep, this would be the first name of the year in the North Indian Ocean, if it does get a name. I'm not quite sure, though, that it would get a name. But here, if we take a look at the North Indian Ocean on this run, oops. Where would I go here for this? Okay, it's not really showing that as an option. This is quite a cool looking map. But not showing a whole lot. Maybe some activity in the Eastern Pacific over the next week or coming weeks. Overall, can't really see a whole lot in that North Indian Ocean disturbance from just looking at this view. Man, this map is quite cool, though. Uh, And again, not really anything in the North Atlantic. Maybe a signal within the next 10 days. I'll take a look at that. And not seeing a whole lot of support for it, but there is something that pops up there. I think what I want to pull up is going to be the cyclone locations. If this shows anything, not a whole lot there. But we can see that disturbance over there in the in the Gulf there. And I'm assuming that, nope, okay, huh. Uh, thought that this would allow me to see that. Right here, parameter, sorry about this, just trying to pull up cyclone locations, there we go. Oh, it doesn't let me get a higher zoom, okay. Anyways, the Euro ensembles aren't really showing a whole lot. They're picking up on that next disturbance though, that next potential wave. Other than that though, not really anything. XL Digital Gamer, you're right about that. Eastern Pacific is surprisingly quiet right now after the hyperactive June. Yep. Really nothing going on there just yet. But if we take a look at the ensembles over the next, beyond this range, we do see that it picks up in activity. And then also, of course, you have your major hurricane in the Atlantic with one ensemble. But yeah, overall, though, we could see an uptick in activity. And it's mainly due to one thing here, I believe, which is it's basically due to the uneven heating of the Earth, the world gets these phases of rising and sinking air, which can support or suppress tropical development here. the GFS run goes quite ballistic over the Western Pacific over the next week. But if we look at ensembles, overall, though, the Western Pacific should become quite favorable. The Atlantic quite quiet, except for this one little wave over there. But then, ooh, this is actually a decent pattern. I don't know if this is a trend or... Oops. What the heck? Why does this run go so far out? Wait, do these ones... Dang, okay, I never realized that some of these go that far out. But it does seem like that the basin may be back open for business back in, or in early August. This is just the American ensembles. If I take a look at the European ensembles, might show a different story. No, it's showing roughly the same thing. So it seems like some of these areas of sinking air may be moving back over towards Africa and then Europe and Asia. And then this green right here, which is more rising air, which promotes more thunderstorms, more tropical cyclones, would move over the Atlantic. Just something to look out for. Just is quite interesting seeing the green move over the Atlantic. It's been on that red side for a while. And this was a similar setup as to last year, I believe, where we had a lot of suppressing activity in the Eastern Pacific with the same kind of orange coloring over the region for like a good month, and that's why there wasn't really much activity. So I do believe that this really does play a huge role in tropical cyclone development. And this is why we could see the Eastern Pacific try to awaken beyond the 10-day range. And then eventually maybe the Caribbean and then Gulf. And if this continues the way it's been looking, it could make it all the way over to the main Atlantic regions and then during peak season. Maybe not peak actually, no. Peak showing a little bit less there. Maybe just in early August we get a phase. again, just here to answer any more questions you all have on the system. I'm not really sure on how much more it's gonna intensify. Or even if it intensifies at all. Looks like it's still more. Not really. It still has time to curve south. It's just it's been quite more north than what was expected, so that's kind of what's helped limit its intensification and prolong the weakening phase. All right. Mackenzie asks, how long does the Eastern Pacific and North Atlantic be inactive? Well, again, looking at these velocity potential anomalies here, basically just, anyways, it just kind of to dumb it down, it shows how most likely favorable it is for some sort of tropical development. It shows that the Eastern Pacific could awaken over the next after the 10-day range. Just it is going to be some sinking air over those regions, and then it propagates eastward. So maybe by the end of July, or no, maybe by early end of July to or very early August, could see a revival in the Eastern Pacific, and maybe by early August for the Atlantic, we could see a revival in the western parts of the Atlantic. But for right now, there isn't really any signals there. But if we take a look at the Climate Prediction Center and we look at the 2 to 3 week range, we do see that the Eastern Pacific could see a slight awakening here from July 30th through August 5th. And over the next 2 days, we'll get another outlook that goes for the next week, and we may see something pop up in the Atlantic. But if we actually read the discussion for this, which I forgot where to go exactly to read this discussion. Oops, okay. Uh, oh, I think this is what I need to click. Yep. Okay, I'm going to see where it mentions the Eastern Pacific. Okay, not really there. Okay, here we go. What is this exactly for? Oh, that's the Gulf Coast disturbance there. The ongoing lull in activity is expected to continue through the next 2 weeks, but activity may begin to increase again during week 3 as the MJO propagates across the Pacific, with the faster European solution favoring a stronger signal. Therefore, a 20 to 40% chance of tropical cyclone formation is highlighted across the eastern North Pacific for week 3. No areas of potential TC formation are indicated across the Atlantic at this time. However, if the MJO moves into a more favorable position and coincident with increasingly climatology across the main development region, it is possible tropical cyclone activity may begin to uptick in early to mid-August across the Atlantic. I'm just going to save this real quick, because I didn't read that portion of it. Mackenzie asks, last one, how long will the Philippines get rain? If we take a look at the Philippines right now, in their radar, not showing a whole lot right now, mainly in the central parts of the Philippines. Oh, and it looks like Manila's actually getting a thunderstorm right now, and a strong thunderstorm off to the east. But if we take a look at the forecast for rain and thunderstorms, here's a look at right now, and then here's a look at the next day, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and beyond. It's just still a lot of thunderstorms. So I don't expect it to lull over the next 5 days. Maybe beyond the 5 day range after the 97W, Invest 97W moves away from land. There could be a lull in thunderstorms. But other than that, not really seeing a whole lot of a lull. It says it's pretty rainy here on Luzon. Yep, if we take a look at the current radar imagery, if we combine radar and thunderstorms, that's probably a better thing to do. We can see that there is quite a strong thunderstorm going on over Manila and Quezon City. And then it is drier for the far northern areas of Luzon. But then looking at southwestern Luzon, it is of course rainy. Overall, I believe that the wind direction is coming from the southwest. So it's mainly just pushing all these thunderstorms inland. And there is quite a strong thunderstorm off the east coast of Luzon. And a bunch of little smaller thunderstorms there. All mainly related to Invest 97W. Which is located right around here. This whole system should eventually consolidate or should become more of a broad rotation. Right now there's not a whole lot of an indication right now that there is any, that this system's the dominant one just yet. But overall, there should be eventually a very broad rotation that eventually develops near Taiwan. In fact, if we look at the 2 day forecast of the German run here, you can see it clearly right over here. And the wind, there's the southwesterly monsoon across the Philippines and then going into the system. Classes getting suspended too on the central provinces due to that. Oh well. Guessing it's just due to the rain. But yeah, I mean, I don't expect that this basin will get quieter really anytime soon. During the next week or so, it is going to be quite more active in the northwestern West Pacific, and again the following week in late July, early August. Looks like it will still be active. Whereas parts of the southern Philippines are expected to be slightly drier. Also, if we take a look at the extreme forecast, and if we take a look at the rainfall forecast and see just how extreme the precipitation is for today, we can see that it is near, for like a daily kind of record, it is nearly record high in the Gulf of Tonkin. And then over the next few days, it is going to be quite high on Monday and then on Tuesday for parts of Myanmar and Thailand. Then moving into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it is going to be quite high for parts of Myanmar and parts of India. But if we look at the Philippines, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, again slightly above average. And then Thursday, Friday. Friday it's slightly drier, looks like, across the Philippines. Then looking at wind, again it is quite windy across parts of the South China Sea and parts of the Gulf of Tonkin. And then it is quite calm for parts of the Bay of Bengal, but that should eventually change over the next few days as this disturbance moves into the Bay of Bengal. But also, if we look here in the Philippines, it is also going to be quite windy because of that disturbance that will try to develop. So I expect some gusty conditions in the Philippines Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Looks like the peak will be around Tuesday and Wednesday. Parts of Myanmar will also be quite gusty on Wednesday. Okay, there's a huge spike of viewership all of a sudden. That was interesting. If you have any questions, just leave them in the chat and I will gladly answer them. That thunderstorm over far southern Guangxi province is moving farther north towards Zhangji. Well, I said Hurricane Eric. Every thought it was gone a long time ago. What do you mean by Eric? Confused why something would say Eric. Maybe something with the tags or something. Hello, David. And any questions on any of the systems going on across the world of tropics? Including our tropical storm Wipha, which could become a typhoon, looking more and more unlikely, however. But again, there's a lot of moisture here and a lot of rain falling in the Gulf of Tonkin. I see YouTube live streams top. Okay. Eric. Huh. I don't know why exactly. It says that it's probably the tags, is my guess. Let's see if I can look at that. No, it wouldn't be Eric. Eric's not on here. I don't know why. But here, if we look at the forecast from some areas, here's Hanoi. We can see it is going to be quite windy on Tuesday, and then for parts Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all rain. If we look at Manila, for example, all rain over the next 5 days or so. Temperatures will be roughly in the same range those days. But if we look at Dhaka in Bangladesh, again, rainy over the next 5 days. It's going to be a quite rainy system over the next week or so as it crosses southeastern Asia. Alright, well, if there's no other questions, then I'll probably, I don't know what to cover next. You know, this is mainly a video update, not really a live update on, like, what's going on every minute or so. So, if you want to stay up to date, just subscribe to the channel, and I will do my best to post more of these live streams, live updates that covers the system. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and again, taking a look at the broad overview of the system, looking at how much of an area could receive at least marginal impacts, and then those areas that could receive slight or moderate impacts over the next 5 days. We may see another stream tomorrow, honestly. But then after that, it's probably going to be less coverage on the system. So if you have any other questions, you can leave them there. Sebastian Ed says, has there been any South Atlantic cyclones or nearly recently? Good question. If we take a look at the South Atlantic here, there hasn't been a whole lot recently. There was a disturbance about a few weeks ago with like a 10% chance, but overall not a whole lot. Mostly things have just been frontal. Not seeing a whole lot recently of anything that looks tropical. But if I take a look at some of the ensembles or just really anything on here that if it hints at any development, any of the deterministic run models, not a whole lot. A bunch of these are post-tropical or non-tropical cyclones. And if we look at the German run, this is the one that typically overdoes things. So this would be the most likely thing to show something developing. No, not really. Keeps everything frontal. With that in mind, I want to check out the Mediterranean. I doubt there's anything on here or in here. Nope. But I'm curious if I can actually see on here. If I look at somewhere like the South Atlantic, I don't think it's going to pop up here. Nope, I'm going to have to do the global thing here. Oh, right, I forget that this shows the this shows non-tropical cyclones as well. This will probably help. Looking at the South Atlantic there, not a whole lot. It's just a bunch of post-tropical disturbances, honestly, or non-tropical things. I'm not seeing a whole lot. I don't know how to exactly forecast that in the long range. But yeah, just as I mentioned, the top three chatters here were Sebastian, Skorda, and Solik. Thank you all so much for supporting. And then of course we have people like Mackenzie and then Map, XL Express, Tigers, Asumaki, and David. Thank you all so much for chatting in here. And Sebastian asking any future predictions for the Atlantic, including track and waves. I don't really think so. All I know though is that early August may see an uptick in activity. I try not to forecast long range, really at all, but that's just my opinion on things. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you for your support. I will see you in the next update, which will most likely happen tomorrow. Stay safe. See ya.